And we're live.
Good evening, second place. How are you doing?
What's up, dude? What's up?
How's it
Bravo.
going?
34,000
Yeah,
steps in a day. Good job.
it was the mind game, the rope-a-dope, if you will. I Jedi mind tricked you into thinking that I'd given up, and then I pulled off a 34,000 step day to come from behind and eke it out by like 1,500 steps.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I
So
did I did
yeah,
a 7 minute mile at the very end of the day.
that was the scariest. I started taunting you after my watch auto synced and uploaded, and I was hoping you wouldn't know that I was pulling off this miracle day. So you had like what, an hour and a half to try to catch up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you sent me a
At 7 minutes till midnight, I was like, oh shit. Like I looked and you were ahead of me by like 2,000 steps. I was like, I gotta do a 7 minute mile. I started sprinting and
I was worried. You sent me a video of you sprinting and talking trash. I sent the first one like that, but you sent me that one at like 11:55 your time, and I was panicked that you were going to sneak it out. And
well,
nope. So
you held on. You held what, 2,000 steps in or something?
yeah, no, I didn't sync until after 1 o'clock my time, midnight your time. But yeah,
Yeah.
so 2 months in a row. So I'm about to start calling you a lazy
Oh,
bastard
you're
just
gonna
because
get
you.
three. You're gonna get three. I already decided I'm taking August off. I've
I was
got a
gonna say I'm.
bike. I haven't been to the gym. I didn't go to the gym but like 4 times last week. I was stepping, so I'm in the gym now.
So you're not in the kind of shape I'm in, is what we're at basically.
Oh, I'm in better shape than you, but
No, well, you can't hang, so I'm gonna keep going. Um,
good.
anyhow, I know you had some photo shoots tonight. Did you get to see how much have you seen today of Tim Waltz? I keep saying Waltz, but apparently it's pronounced Walls, like Walls, like walls in a
Walls,
house.
like
So I'm
balls
gonna
to the
mess that up.
walls.
Yes, and I've seen memes like that with him
Huh.
today already. But
Okay.
I want to get your opinion of him because I got a lot I can say about him. So what are your thoughts of the pick?
I honestly I don't know much. He was the guy I was rooting for just because he is really outspoken and loud and like so but I don't really know much about him. I haven't looked into his past. I didn't really like Shapiro that much. He seemed to have too many skeletons in his closet. And
Did you not like him because he was Jewish? Is
was
that
he the is he the one that speaks in the tone of Obama?
Yeah, very
Okay.
much so.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. It was too reminiscent. Like I like Obama, but like he was just copying Obama
It
basically.
seemed like he was doing an Obama impression. Like
Yeah.
it works. He was the speaker right before Kamala tonight in Philadelphia, which he's on his home turf. But dude, electric. Like I hadn't really seen him speak a whole lot, and he had that place rocking. Um, we'll get to that in a minute. I'll say this: when I was thinking about the VP candidates for Kamala, he was the one that was kind of. I said I was happy with any of them, but then he was like the late addition, and at first all I knew is somebody had said, "Oh, he's the real progressive one," and I was like, don't do that. Like, there's no need to do that. Like, give me a centrist candidate and you win. But like you, I was seeing clips of him on TV, and he did a good job of most of the time. Liberals try to like run away from their progressivism, and he instead like he defends it and he does it in a real good way. He's very much like Trump, where he speaks in like simple, plain talk that like the everyday folk understand.
Yeah.
He's Midwesterner, and he there's a clip of him with Jake Tapper where they kind of brought up all the progressive things he's passed, and he turned it into like, oh, I'm such a monster. Like, yeah, I made sure kids were fed and I made sure everybody had health care. Like, shoot me. I love the approach he took, but he was not my favorite. I did not. I wanted Shapiro. In my mind, you win Philadelphia, you win the race, or sorry, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But that seemed obvious. Apparently, and this is all rumors that are coming out today, but apparently he kind of sees himself as a number one. And when he was meeting with Kamala over the weekend, like he was basically like, if I'm going to do this, like we're going to be like 1A and 1B, like co-presidents, if you will. Like he didn't want to be the VP that doesn't do a lot.
Oh.
And after watching him talk tonight, like I can kind of see not picking him because like he would have overshadowed Kamala. Like he's good. Like if you're Kamala, you almost don't want to bring out a VP that's number one energy. And
Okay.
Waltz seems happy to be like, whatever I can do for you, ma'am. And I kind of see that pick. Everybody's saying that she didn't pick him because he's Jewish. I don't think that's the case, but if you're a Republican for like talking point wise, like that's something that I totally think is reasonable to bring up.
Well,
So,
it was his stance on Israel. Like he's
well, so
pro-Israel. Like he's like give Israel all the guns, kill all of the Gazans. Like that's basically his stance, and that's
so
fine.
Not exactly. He is pro-Israel, but he does not like Netanyahu. He thinks that Netanyahu's been fueling this. He wants to find a peaceful resolution. He is for Israel, but
Yeah.
he it's like I always said, like if we were going to get any gun laws passed, like Donald Trump was the perfect person to do it. Because if he said to all the Trump voters, like, "Hey, we need some sensible gun laws," like he's the one that could have convinced them to be okay with it, and it could have happened. And I feel like the whole like if you dare question Netanyahu or his leadership, you can instantly be branded an anti-Semite,
Yeah.
and like that's a dangerous. Like you almost don't even just stay out of it. You don't want to say anything. So if you had a Jewish VP criticizing him, like I think that's what it would take to where then he couldn't. They'd probably still call him an anti-Semite, but
And what's
that's what
the
you need.
Israel lobby? What's the name of the Israel lobby that funds all the politicians basically?
I don't know. I'm sure there is one, but I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a
like
big one and they fund like all of them. And yeah, that speech was horrifying
which
from
one?
Netanyahu. Netanyahu,
Oh God, yeah, that was just
terrifying.
filled with lies, and yeah, it was dark. It was
Yeah.
kind of like a Trump speech, where it's just like the worst view of everything, and
Yeah. And every
yeah,
single one of our politicians, almost all of them, were clapping,
yeah,
standing ovations, clapping. Like I'm terrified of our own judicial system now.
yeah. No, agreed. But I will say, we're gonna get to the big, I guess the rolling out of the VP happened in Philadelphia today. I watched it live. I got a lot to say about it, but before I watched that. Like the first thing I did today is I kept hearing how progressive he was. So I did my kind of between phone calls work wise trying to figure out about this guy. First thing that freaked me out is I saw that your boy is Kyle Kalinske, something like
All right,
that.
Kyle, you watch Kyle too.
I do, but I wouldn't say that I agree with him. But I try to watch everything, so I watch him. He loves the pick, which scared me at first. You and him, like, I fear that he has brainwashed you to be too far left. Like that's kind of where. Anyhow, he loved it, and I can't say his name, but Jink Younger, whatever that
Yeah.
guy, he loved it. And those are two guys that are too far left for me, and they both were like high fiving, so scared me. Bernie comes out, and Bernie says he loves it. I'm like, oh shit! Like you,
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I kept saying the Democrats are totally capable of fucking this up. And right there, the first three people I see celebrating this pick are those three, and I'm just like, oh, we're in trouble now.
And then
But
Nancy
then,
Pelosi, Nancy
well,
Pelosi too.
Nancy came out at some point, but then Joe Manchin left the Democratic Party for them being too crazy, and he's an independent now, like borderline Republican.
Yeah.
He came out and was like, love this pick. The governor of Ohio is apparently great friends with him, DeWitt, who's a Republican. So it was weird because all of a sudden it was like, oh wow, like the independents are praising this, and the furthest left people I know are praising this. So it had
Yeah.
me confused.
Well, so from what I understand is he actually, when he went to Congress, actually like worked. Like he was putting through legislation, like working the aisles, like getting things passed. Like he did more for veterans than any other like politician has ever done. So
So a good thing, but it's going to be used against him because one of the attacks against him already, because he was in the Democratic leadership of the House when Pelosi was running it in like 2010. So they're going to start labeling him as Pelosi's wingman, Pelosi's lapdog, whatever. And for Republicans, there's some keywords that they love to hear, like a San Francisco liberal. Like if you label somebody that, that's far worse than just being a liberal.
yeah, but you
A
sent me a picture of him holding a pig at the
Oh
state
no,
fair
no,
or
this
whatever.
guy's not. But I'm just saying, I'm giving you an example of kind of Republican keywords that make their ears perk up. Okay,
Okay.
if you can at all tie them to Pelosi, like there's just a genuine hate of Pelosi from any Trump voter, anybody that's not even a Trump voter, just a classic Republican. If you say Pelosi, then so if they can tie him to Pelosi, that's something they're going to try to do. Um, there's a couple good lines of attack on him that he's got to be ready for. We'll get to those in a minute,
Do you
but
think the moderates have that same with Nancy Pelosi?
no, well, so Nancy Pelosi is hated because she was great at her job. Like there was a couple years when Obama got elected and had like he had a super majority. It is rare that that happens, but he had enough votes in the House and the Senate to pass whatever he wanted with no Republican support. And normally, the way things used to be, you'd have to get it over to the Senate, and in the Senate, you always needed to get a couple votes from the other side. Whoever was in power, nobody would ever have 60 seats. So you had to bring it back to the middle a little bit, make it more palatable to get a couple of Republicans or Democrats to jump on board. Obama had like 2008, 9, 10, I guess 9 and 10. He had a super majority, so like they didn't even have to check with the Republicans. They could just rubber stamp and they did. Pelosi kept everybody lockstep. Like at the time, I did not like most of what they were passing, so it was frustrating as hell for me. But you have to
Like,
give it to her. I mean, that's when they were passing Obamacare. I was a hardcore Republican at that point, and Obama, who might have been a Muslim, I'm not sure. To this, I'm just joking. He obviously wasn't. But I was definitely on that bandwagon. But Pelosi got things through at a ridiculous pace. Like the amount of legislation they got through in 2 years, while they just and they she gets attacked all the time because somebody asked at one point what was in the bill, and she said, "Well, you have to vote on it to know what's in it." Like, and that literally, it was like, "We're not going to stop and tell you what's in these. Just I am the leader, and I'm telling you to vote yes," and they did, and she got a lot through. So for being so awesome at her job.
was that actually, was she just joking around or was that like real? She
No,
was
I believe
real.
that's a real quote. They said, I think Republicans were complaining, saying, "How are we voting on these bills? We haven't even read them." And she said, "Well, you have to vote on it to know what's in it." And they,
That doesn't make any sense. Like that's I mean,
let's
and I'm not a huge Nancy Pelosi fan either. Like she's a, politician through and through.
mm, I'll send you the clip. I'll find that and I'll send it to you, and we'll talk about it again next time. So I'll find that for you.
Okay.
To be continued. But I got a little list here of I kind of broke it down, but I got a list of the what I would call very far left things that Walz has done. And I actually like three-quarters of them. Like I really do. Like today I started questioning if I might be more socialist than I think I am. Because
Oh, I think you are,
I think
Andy.
I think you're gonna be on board with all these. But real quick, first thing, he joined the House of Representatives from a very rural area, like a farming area in Minnesota. So he flipped a Republican district, became it like the first Democrat in 100 years or something to win this seat.
Yeah.
Did it, got to Congress, and the kind of was a very moderate congressman. Like when he was in Congress, his record was close to center. When he got to governor of Minnesota, that's when it skewed far left. He's a hunter and a gun owner, and all about responsible kind of gun ownership and gun laws. Wants universal background checks, red flag laws. He passed red flag laws and expanded background checks in Minnesota. I'm all about that. I love my guns, but I think that we should have some stricter laws. Um, Legalize marijuana. If alcohol is going to be legal, then I'm a fan of just getting them both legal. Free universal free school meals, breakfast and lunch for K through 12. So I'm actually all about that. Feed the kids. There's too many kids that deal
But
with
how are we
poverty.
going to pay for this, Andy? How are we going to pay for this?
But like I said, I'm okay with of all the things we waste our money on as a country. Like I'm okay with that one. He did tax rebates for working class families that made under 150,000 a year. It was like $1,300 a year, but making it easier on the middle class. I'm a fan
Yeah.
of that. He banned gay conversion therapy, which I've seen some things on gay conversion therapy, and that freaks me out. So not we'll get to the LGBTQ stuff in a minute, but just as far as like churches sending kids away to camps to like pray the gay out of them has
Yeah.
always bothered me. So I'm okay with that.
And get
Totally.
molested by their camp counselors while they're at
Dude, yeah.
it.
Anyhow, uh automatic voter registration. If you get a driver's license, you're registered to vote. I very much love that. You live in a state that has mail-in universal voting or something. That how would you
Yeah.
describe it?
And when you go to the DMV, so I've only been to the DMV once, when I first moved here, and you go in and you check a box, do you want to register to vote? Check. And they start mailing you ballots.
And
And
you've said it's very secure. Like you have a barcode after you send your ballot back in after voting, you can go online to make sure that they recorded your vote correctly. Like the way you
yeah,
described it.
one time I forgot to sign because you got to sign like the outside of the envelope.
Mhm.
One time I forgot to sign it, and like I had to go through like 3 or 4 different steps to verify who I was. Like they
Gotcha.
called me and mailed me, emailed me maybe, and yeah, I had to do like like identification verification with them.
Okay. Well, I'm a fan of everybody we should try to make it towards 100% participation in the elections.
No Republican
What
will ever win.
they know that they've said that
Yeah.
like and they make it very clear that like high turnout is bad for them. Low turnout elections is when they'll win. But like I think we should, whether it be a holiday or have voting be on a weekend or something, but doing the way we currently do it is kind of set up to try to make it harder for certain people to vote. And I'm one of them. Like I genuinely have a job that it's hard to be like, oh, I gotta take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour off in the middle of the day to run and vote and then come back to work. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see here. Free public college if you make under 80,000 a year. That's we were talking about that a couple nights ago. But I don't think all higher education should be free, but I think there should be some form of state schools where you can get a college degree for either free or very cheap. And then I think there should still be your Harvards and your Yales and all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
he did that. So more power to him on that.
He did that
Uh,
actually?
so it says he did. That's what I read,
Oh.
is that he put that through to where
So if
they
you
get.
make 80,000 or less, you get free. So I mean, if you're right out of high school, you're
But
gonna make
that's I'm
less than
sure
that.
that's like junior college, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not but anyhow, you still get a degree. You
Yeah.
get a degree, that's all that matters. This one you'll like, and this I feel like he kind of takes a little bit out of the RFK lane. He put some kind of legislation through to ban PFAS, and I had to look this up. PFAS are the forever chemicals that are in the water.
Yeah.
It's a Anyhow, he put some legislation through. I don't think that it's gone, I don't think they've fully removed it from the water yet, but they have all these strict rules in now to try to get that out of. So awesome. That
Huge.
should be in
It's
every state.
huge. Yeah.
And it turns out Biden actually signed like a federal legislation on that in April of this year. So he's doing it in the state, and Biden actually. So I'm good deal. Like the more I read about that stuff, that's one area where RFK is got my ears attention, is the whole keeping the waterways and what they put in the food. Like I'm all about that stuff.
Yep.
$2.2 billion increase in K through 12 funding. I live in a state where they're stripping public school funding away constantly and then pointing at me, look how bad our public schools are. Yeah, you're killing the funding. So anytime that's one of those, if yes, that's raising taxes, I don't care. Put the money towards the kids. They're the future type thing. So
Yeah.
I'm on
Well,
board with
and
that.
that's where college comes in too. Like put the money towards higher education.
Mhm.
A smart country is a good country, right?
To
The
me, it seems
smarter our
like
country is, the better our country's going to be.
it's a good investment in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So the whole feeding kids free lunch and breakfast at school and making sure kids have access to put the money into the schools. I'm good with that.
And
Um,
in Europe, a lot of those countries in Europe, they will do they have like a program where like somewhere in high school they start like separating. They're like, "Oh, you're really good at, mechanical stuff. So we're going to put you in this like mechanical college, like could kind of like guide them into things that they're
mhm.
actually like good at." And so they just like they kind of delegate everybody into different areas where they're good at and they have free education.
That's one thing. I think that was a Trump thing, and I'll give him credit for it. Is I remember and I can't remember, I'm going to mess this up, but it was basically trade schools, like
Yeah.
making it to where, if you're going to be a mechanic, like you can stop going to school at a certain point and just go focus on being a mechanic. You don't need to take all these other college degree classes. It was something like that, and it made sense to me at the time. So it sounds similar to what you're describing. So I'll give Trump credit for that one. That was what I like that idea. It was a good one. Um, Other thing, real quick, the last couple things I liked. This dude, Walz, is former. He was in the National Guard for like 24 years. Became a social studies teacher and a football coach.
Yeah.
Coach linebackers, something like that. His wife is a 29-year teacher. Not 29 years old, but she's been teaching for 29 years. So I feel like this whole battle with the school boards and the way teachers are being treated right now, it bothers me. Like the area I live in, they're having trouble having teachers with teaching certificates because a lot of them are just quitting because they don't want to put up with this crap. So
So what
I'm
are they
very pro.
doing?
That's a whole separate. We can talk about the school board issues. I want to go start speaking at my local school board because I'm so upset because only the crazy people show up and speak at those. And
Yeah.
anyhow, we'll talk about that later. That's another
So are
episode.
they hiring people that don't have teaching certificates?
The big city closest to me, it turns out, is, and it's like just a matter of we need someone to be in this classroom. Like all the people with teaching certificates got the hell out of our state because our I don't want to give away where I live to a degree, but our state superintendent's nationally known for being an idiot and trying to ruin our schools. So
So like they're basically just babysitters?
I think so.
Of
It's really
course.
bad. So put
Yeah,
more money into public schools. I'm all about it.
for sure.
Um, this dude's pro-union. He got endorsed already by the United Auto Workers, which Biden had that endorsement, and then when he dropped out, they were kind of not sure if they were going to give it to Kamala, but putting him on there, he's a big union guy, so good deal. Here's where you got to talk me into this stuff, okay? He said he signed a legislation that Minnesota is going to they're going to have carbon-free electricity by 2040, so that's in 15 years, and I think you would find that most Republicans will agree that, like, yeah, we need to find clean sources of energy, but it's just a matter of like California sets these ridiculous goals, like we're by 2030, no gas cars. It's like, how are you going to do that? People can't all afford to get electric cars. Like that's not feasible. So
6 years.
his carbon-free electricity by 2040. If he's got a great plan for how to do it, I'd love to hear it. But like that seems sometimes they overreach and they make these goals that are not reasonable, and I feel like that might be one of them.
Carbon-free electric cars or carbon-free energy for the electric cars?
Energy for the state, for houses, and for everything.
Okay. Well,
Their entire
so
he wants their entire grid to be carbon free by
I mean,
2040.
it's basically just these giant, really expensive filters, from what I understand. And they take like the power plants that they're
You're talking
running now, and they're still using petroleum and all that stuff. I think Colorado's down to like 30% petroleum.
okay.
They're using a
You're
lot
talking
of
about
natural resources.
you're
But
talking about carbon capture, I believe, which I
yeah,
don't know if I never saw that anywhere in the stuff. I read a lot today about trying to figure out what he's proposing here. I never saw anything about carbon capture. I think he's talking more like solar, wind,
yeah,
whatever to, use natural resources is what it seems like they're trying to do.
yeah. And Colorado's doing well. Like my electric company's doing like it's like 20 or 30% is what they're using for like petroleum and stuff, oil-based products.
Okay.
Everything else is oil, is wind, solar. So, I mean, it's
Okay.
doable. It's doable. It's not like, I mean, it's a good goal to have, I guess.
Okay. And
I
then
mean,
the
how hot
last
has it
two,
been?
oh God, it's been 101 here the last couple
Are you
days.
guys breaking records?
Not yet, but it's one of the hottest summers on record, but not the
Yeah.
hottest. So
Yeah.
apparently, like 1979 or 80, there was anyhow.
Yeah, I mean,
The
all over, it's just hotter. And like we totally destroy like they what was it, 5 years ago? The scientists were like, if we don't get down to this, then it's just gonna keep going. And if we don't do it by 2025,
Yeah, we're gonna hit a
we're
point of no
fucked.
return. Yeah,
Yeah, and so like, and basically
we're
they
pretty
just
much
came
there.
out a month or two ago, and they said like, yeah, we're just screwed. Like we didn't meet our goals. We're all gonna die.
Yeah, that's it's
So
scary, but we just all like we're gonna take over Canada. Like at some point, the U.S. is gonna like take over Canada because we're all gonna need to keep moving north, further away from the equator, and that's suddenly gonna be the good land, and we're just gonna yeah. I predict a war with Canada here in like 30 years
hmm,
because we want their climate basically.
Trump Jr.
Um, yeah, that's Trump tried to buy Greenland, and now that I look back at that, I'm like that wasn't a bad idea. Like, or it was Iceland or Greenland, I can't remember which one, but he might have been onto something. Um, the last two, I would say I'm in favor of these, but the little bit of like corporate knowledge I have, it scares me. He passed in Minnesota 12 weeks paid family leave. So when you have a kid, mom and dad both get 12 weeks off. And then 12, this seems, I saw this in several places. It seems like this is a typo. 12 weeks paid sick leave.
Say that one
12
more time.
weeks, 12 weeks paid sick leave.
Okay.
12 weeks paid sick leave a year. Like I can't imagine running a business and having employees that have 12. It has to be 2 weeks, and I saw it wrong several times because 2 weeks. If 2 weeks paid sick leave, I'm cool with. 12 seems ridiculous. But even with the family paid leave, I look at that. What's the threshold? Like if you're running a small business and you got 4 or 5 employees, and now you've got to pay for one of them to be off for 12 weeks to be home with. I get it, and they should be it. But if you're the owner of the business, I don't know how you pay for that.
Yeah, I mean they do it in Europe.
They
Like
do,
they,
and
they go on a holiday. They have like 3 months vacation on
maybe the
holiday.
company gets reimbursed tax wise to where they're not really out that money. I don't know. But that's
Yeah.
scary.
I
Um,
think maybe if you have, I guess for every 4 employees, you have to hire one more employee to cover that downtime for everybody being out.
but for
Right?
small businesses, like hiring that one more employee is
It's a
almost,
lot.
it could be a deal breaker. And that's where
Yeah.
the Republican capitalist side of me still with some of these progressive things where I'm just like, if I was running that business, I don't know how I'd do it. Like even when I think that there should be universal health care, but when Obamacare came in, I know people who had businesses and suddenly had to like cut hours and make their people part-time because they couldn't possibly afford to put 20 employees to add healthcare to all. That would have bankrupted them. They couldn't have continued. So instead, they made their employees, 35-hour week part-time employees to where they didn't actually have to give it to them.
Hmm.
And now that person's not a full-time employee, they're making less a week, and it's either that or quit because I don't have the hours. I can't give it to you and then pay for your health care.
Yeah.
So It almost this is traveling down like a lefty lane I don't want to be in, but it almost needs to be like single payer run by the government. Like when you make companies responsible for doing it. I worked for a company that gave me free healthcare, and that was awesome. So when Obamacare hit, suddenly my company was scrambling because they suddenly had to give every employee that worked over 30 hours a week, I think, healthcare. And then my quality of healthcare went down drastically.
Yeah.
Like I used to have great healthcare, and now I do not because of Obamacare. That being said, I think it should be a given that we all have good health care in this
Yeah.
country. But
Yeah.
the way it happened
A
fucked me
healthy,
over.
educated society is a good
Yeah,
society, right?
I agree with you. So of all those liberal leftist things that Waltz has done, is there any of them that you don't like? I figure this is like Kyle loved all his list of achievements, so I got to believe you liked it.
I'm on board. Yeah. I'm on board with him.
Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
the right pick, or do you still think she should have gone with the with
No, I'm happy
Shapiro?
with his pick. I did talk to one person today about it, and she said, I think she's from Minnesota. She kind of has that accent, but she said people in Minnesota don't like him because of he let the city burn during the BLM movements.
Dude,
That was
so
the thing.
that there's a couple of attacks that they're trying out already on him, and some of them are good. I think I mentioned that already, but one of them, this is the best one, kind of with Kamala. You know the whole thing where it's like she locked up too many black men, and she's also weak on crime, and it's like which one is it? Uh, so he got shit from the left for even calling out the National Guard, like they think he shouldn't have done that at all. So he took
Hmm.
shit for calling them out, and he's taking shit from the right for waiting too long to call out the National Guard. So he's kind of
Hmm.
screwed. The left's mad that he called them out at all, and now it's irritating because like the first story I read today said that he on the second night is when he decided to call them out, and then they didn't actually deploy till the next morning. So they got out on the third day, and for some reason everything I saw on Fox News was he let the city burn for 4 days, and I'm like, am I
Hmm.
getting wrong info, or did they just tack on a day because they figured nobody's going to look it up? I think they just tacked on a day because
Yeah, nobody's gonna look.
yeah.
Yeah, do your
So
own
I look
research, Andy.
Yeah, so I looked it up. It looks like on the end of the second day, and then there's a whole kerfuffle where I just used the word kerfuffle, by the way. That's
I
a
like it.
first.
It's a good
Whole
word.
kerfuffle where his daughter then like tweeted out that he was going to be deploying the National Guard, so like basically gave a heads up to the rioters.
His
And
daughter.
his daughter she's a teenager, but I'll say this with some of his like progressive things, he puts videos of him and his daughter doing fun things all the time. They seem to have a good relationship, but I also wonder like how much is she in his ear? Like he's very pro LGBTQ stuff. I wonder if she's got a great like she's got daddy wrapped around her finger and she's like, Dad, it'd be really cool if you were nice about these things. There's a part of me that got that vibe today.
Oh, yeah.
So, but his
Does it
daughter,
does it
yeah, that
hit does it hit close to home, Andy?
Oh my daughter could probably now right now she's being a little shit, but I could see there's times where she's good and she could get me to do anything. But that's kind of the vibe I got. It's I will say this, he puts out a lot of like them going to the fair together and riding roller. He looks like a fun dude. He looks like
Yeah.
he's very likable. He's got that whole Minnesota burning thing, which that's if you've been on Twitter at all I'm seeing is videos now of the George Floyd protests. Like that's 100%. Now he did, and people are making this argument. The cop that was the one that killed George Floyd, he was most likely going to walk, and the governor stepped in and made it. He basically appointed. Oh, I forgot the guy's name. Erickson, something. A black guy that's he's the prosecutor in Minneapolis, I guess, and he like put the case in his lap to make sure that this guy got a fair trial and got what he deserved. So he's getting some credit for that. Like he made sure that Derek Chauvin, I believe, the cop that killed George Floyd, got what he deserved.
Okay.
That's just the way they're spinning it. But
Hmm.
either way, summer of 2020 George Floyd riots, not a good thing for him. You're going to see videos of that nonstop for a while. Um, he also made Minnesota a trans sanctuary state, meaning if you live in a state where they banned gender affirming care, you can go to Minnesota and get the gender affirming care. And in his order, he said, like, we will not, like, he won't even, if there's a subpoena for information about you, he will defy it. Like, you're safe here. Like, I won't give out your medical records. Okay.
Okay.
So that we
I
talked earlier
didn't
about
I didn't know there were states that ban gender affirming care.
they're most of them in the southern state. If it's red on an election map, it's probably banned.
So what does that mean? Like if you want to go to the doctor can't like prescribe you pills or do any surgeries or whatever?
Yes, and we're
Or,
gonna
okay.
get to more of that here in a second. But on that, we were talking about the liberal, like, oh, she's a San Francisco lefty. Like that's like, keyword for Republicans. Like the whole transgender and like kids transitioning right now that's a great talking point if you're voting Republican. Like that has them fired up. And the Olympic boxing thing? This is a couple days old, but are you familiar with this whole Olympic boxing thing
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so how familiar are you with this?
Fairly familiar. Yeah, I feel like Kyle had a good point on that.
Okay. Well, all I'll say for anybody that doesn't know about this, two ladies box. One of them gets hit in the nose 40 minutes in, breaks her nose, and quits the fight crying. The other lady looks a lot like a man.
You said
I'm not
40
trying.
minutes in.
40 seconds in, sorry,
What
40
second?
seconds into the fight, roughly. The one that broke her nose looks very manly. So it turns out, like, right away, I'm seeing people on Facebook that are like, oh, and I didn't even question it at first. So we're like, oh, look, the Olympics is letting a trans man beat up a woman, and they're fine with that. And like when I first saw that, I was like, wow, like I'm kind of shocked that the Olympics is allowing that, but I'm actually kind of not. Like it
Yeah.
seemed par for the course. And I was just like, shit, like I can't believe that we're doing that now, but okay. And then the next day you find out that like, oh no, she's a woman. She was born a woman. She's got a vagina and ovaries and whatever, and she's got high levels of testosterone.
Yeah.
Now, what's in question is there was reports that she has an XY chromosome, but apparently that test was done by some Russian boxing
Do we trust the
regulatory agency.
Russians at all?
No one, and they've asked, especially now since this, people are asking that agency, like, what test did you possibly do? Because apparently they're like, there's no standard test they give that test chromosomes. Like, if you were testing for doping and stuff like that for boxing, you wouldn't do a chromosome test. So they're asking this agency, like, what test did you do? Can you please provide us with info about this? And this, they're not providing shit. So it's even in question if she has an XY or not. She definitely has high levels of testosterone. There's a whole argument to be had of should there be a maximum testosterone threshold, like if you want to
Okay.
do that. Um, People are making the argument like, oh, she has a genetic gift that makes her better at boxing. Michael Phelps has three or
Yeah.
four different
Yeah.
just
He's
where
a fish. He's a half fish. Yeah.
he is, and he was born with certain advantages, and tall people playing basketball were born with certain. I mean,
Yeah.
so at what point do you just say she's born a woman, she's a woman? I don't know the answer to that. But my whole thing here is I think she's from Algeria. I might be wrong on that. But Algeria flatly outlaws gender affirming care. Okay. So
Yeah.
people
And
on the left, and
hold on. Let me stop you real
go
quick
ahead. Go ahead.
because the thing is the Republicans came out with this. It was like, oh, this is what the United States is going to turn into if Kamala Harris becomes president. It's going to be a transgender boxing match between men and women. And like,
Uh,
it's like this is an Algerian woman. First of all, not even our own country. Second of all, it's the Olympics who like create their own laws. Kamala Harris has nothing to do with that.
Dude,
And
they
second
were
of all,
flat out.
who is even watching boxing, like women's boxing in the
Mhm.
Olympics?
Dude,
Like
they
100,000 people worldwide?
they were flat out blaming Kamala. They were like, it's because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that this is happening. It's like this is the
It's so
like you said, this is
stupid.
the Olympics. Like this, and I saw other things that people were saying if Trump was president, he'd be putting sanctions on Algeria right now for sending. And it's like, really, do we want that? Do we want? Okay, that seems dumb, but
Yeah.
anyhow, my point is Algeria outlaws gender affirming care. People on the left, and I don't, I want to get somebody on that can explain this to me, or just somebody in my own personal time to explain this because I don't know. But I was talking to somebody one time and they were like, all these kids that are transitioning. And I was like, well, how many really is it? So we looked it up. And it was like over the past decade, there's been like 700 kids under the age of 18 that have gotten gender affirming care. It was a real low number. I fudged that number just now, but it was super low.
Okay.
And then you read on and it's like, oh, a lot of these kids are born with either like hermaphrodites with both, like Jamie Lee
Oh,
Curtis, I always heard was born with both sex organ. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've always
oh,
heard that. But I guess that's just a thing that happens. And for this girl, like when she started going through puberty and started developing manly features, like had she lived in a country where they could have done this, they could have taken her in and gotten her on some kind of testosterone blockers or something to
oh
make
yeah.
her develop more as a woman. But Algeria flatly does not allow gender affirming care, which is what that would have been. Okay. Now, I think the problem is gender affirming care means that. And then it also means like, well, cut a 17-year-old's privates off and make him a woman or whatever. And I think that's it. I wonder how often is it really just a kid that's like, I think I'm a girl. do sex change operation on me. I don't think they do that very often for someone under 18. But
No.
if you have someone like this boxer, that's kind of the perfect case where like she could use some gender affirming care, but in Algeria that's not going to happen. So
Yeah. Huh.
so the whole trans sanctuary state with Waltz, like I'm really torn on that right now. I'd love for somebody to explain to me, like a doctor, like how often is this really happening? Are there really parents that are just like, my son thinks he's a woman, please do a sex change on him and he's
700
12?
700 times since when?
I'll look that up because
Okay.
it was like in the last decade it happened like 700 or 900 times
Okay.
or something like that. It was
So
a very small.
70 times a year. That's it's nothing. That's the thing is they're making a big deal about it. Something that happens very
Well, and
infrequently. And we have 3 minutes left.
okay, even I'll say this, even the whole, letting boys play, like letting a person born as a male that is now a female play lady sports. That's a big thing they're upset about. And I don't know, is that happening a lot? Because I know there was that one college swimmer that it happened with her. But other than that, like
Yeah.
the only other case I know, there was a wrestler in Texas, I think it was in Euless, that was born a female and was wanting to become a man and was taking testosterone, and she wanted to wrestle in the men's division. And Texas had come out with this law that like, no, you have to wrestle with whatever's on your birth certificate. So they made her wrestle the women, and she whooped ass. She won number one in the state, and they were all pissed about it. But she's like, I want to wrestle as a man. I identify as a man. I want to wrestle as a man. And it's like there's some gray area. Like there's
Yeah.
gray area, and you can't make a blanket law because all these cases are different. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's a mistake in my opinion.
And I think Kyle mentioned that they're like this girl, like what she has with like she's a female, but she just has real high levels of testosterone. It's something called like there's a
DSD.
what is it?
It was like DSD or something like that. I don't know what it stands for, but that's
Okay. Yeah, he mentioned a name, I forget it, but there's like 34 different types of this that could be happening.
it's a
So
lot of gray
it's a
area.
giant spectrum of
Yeah.
and like we know guys who are very feminine and we know guys who are super masculine like and we know
Yep.
girls that on the same who are very
Yeah.
masculine very feminine so I don't
Yeah.
know it's all
Great.
over the place
So
but we should
we
wrap
running
it
out of
up on
time.
that.
All right. Have a good night, sir. Enjoy your photo shoot in the morning.
All right, brother, take it
All
easy.
right. Later.